one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, we'll start the meeting. Welcome to the July 1st regular meeting of the St. Mary's City Commission. If you would like to speak to the group, please come up to the podium and keep your comments clear, concise, and courteous, please. We'd also like to know if you're a resident of the city. The first thing we're going to look at tonight are three appropriation ordinances, 1270, 1271, and 1272. Comment for you? Anything you want to highlight?
Oh, well, 1270 was the Experience St. Mary's for the 4th of July. We hadn't made them. The second one was for the fire truck. And this last one is for the regular appropriations you had before you. On there's just a couple of things. The 8300 from Midwest Concrete, that would be for that Elm Street sidewalk. The 1250 from, I think it's Not the Bigs, that is for indigent defense, and it's a case that started in court last year that's carried over. And the 55,208, that was for the sewer plant thing that Scipio was in here getting approved a few meetings ago. I'm trying to think of what that device is called, but it's eluding me. Grid classifier, that's what they do.
Pretty good. Go ahead.
Is that the full amount that will be billed on there?
I think so, and it included the install, I believe.
Okay, great.
So, but I better double check that.
Anything else on the appropriation ordinances, questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the appropriation ordinances 1270, 1271, and 1272 as presented.
Mr. Mayor, I so move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion to second. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those are approved. Next item is the proposed minutes from the June 17th regular meeting. Which looks fine to me.
Okay.
So those are approved. Do we have any agenda items to add? Yes?
I have a really short request for St. Mary's Main Street beautification.
She said short to imply that she wants to go.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think she wants to go first.
I evidently have a reputation, so.
Which actually is fine with me. So we'll put that first on the agenda since it's short. Anything else? Okay, so we'll make that agenda item A1 or something like that. So we'll proceed then, if you'd like to come up to the podium. Main Street beautification.
Yes. So my name is Carolyn Gray from Winnebago, Kansas, and I'm here on behalf of the St. Mary's Main Street Committee and the St. Mary's Garden Club. Did you know we have a garden club? It's kind of new, but the Garden Club and the Main Street Committee is asking for some dollars for some plants, hanging plants, and possibly potted plants. There's a couple of requests here for you. I can pass this out, but basically they're wanting to just start a sampling to test. It can get kind of an expensive endeavor, and so we're just asking for a small amount, I guess that's relative, for 8 hanging planters to be hung on the 4 main posts in St. Mary's at 5th Street intersection and 6th Street intersection of 24. Hanging flower baskets with brackets to be placed on the existing light poles. And they did some research on these brackets, and they had met with a greenhouse in Manhattan who told them that these brackets were really fantastic. They had had some difficulties, and so they did some research on finding quality materials. And this total, and I'll pass this around, this total is $2,741.95. And then there's a secondary proposal for 8 large wooden half barrels for flower containers. And these will be placed by the pole. There will be 2 containers by each pole, and the cost for those are $842.
Didn't we try this a few years
I
ago?
think we were briefed by Joseph Moses and someone else.
I only have one, I'm sorry, I only have one copy, I got
Bob, did
my
you?
copier. But it,
Is this all one document?
that's all one document, so kind of.
We'll make copies if you don't mind.
And, but at any rate, we have
I'll make copies for you.
we have a little bit, we've had some experience with Ray's and with in front of Immaculata Bookstore. And the hardest commitment is watering the darn things, because you have to water them every single day. And Greg Hockman-Durfer, I think I said that right, he's pretty passionate. He's a great gardener, he's pretty passionate, and I know that's easy to say standing up here, but he's done a really good job with the flowers down at Ray's. He waters them every day. He's got a tank, he's got a sprayer, and he takes his little truck and goes around and does that. And he would like to spend more of his time with the beautification of Main Street, but he feels that, and the garden club feels that at least this would be something he could prove. And he understands what it takes to maintain them, and he has big plans. And we talked about just doing baby steps and seeing how each step goes along to kind of prove that we can handle that big project. And so I expect, depending on what you think of this today, he's got a lot of good ideas for beautification and highlighting special events and ways to maintain flowers in St. Mary's in an affordable fashion. So if you have any questions of me or Greg, otherwise you can look at that. And I don't know if you'd be willing to give us an answer tonight, or if you need to think about that.
Didn't we look into brackets and buy brackets? And
We didn't buy any.
we didn't buy any.
They came to the commission asking the same thing, and I just couldn't commit an employee to go around water
That was, I think, yeah,
every
then.
day. And then it just died out.
That is the number one issue, but that was before Greg came along, and he's absolutely willing to do that every day. He does understand that it has to be done every day, and he does have quite a few people in the following that are willing to step up when he's not able to.
I'm not gonna ask you to come up, but I saw you nodding your head. You can confirm you're willing to do that,
Oh, yes, sir, thank you, yes.
even though she said you had a little truck?
No, I have a good truck.
Oh, I'm sorry, Greg.
If you want to look at it first. I'm just curious, I'd like to just get Bob's take on this, since it's kind of a,
Yeah, I've seen him working at Ray's, and they do look good. He's down there all the time, taking care of them and watering them.
I wondered why it kind of fizzled. Was it just because we couldn't commit to watering them? Was that?
Well, I don't know if it was that or the dollars, I don't know for sure.
Well, there's also an issue about getting brackets that would work with our streetlights. They were supposed to go to Manhattan and look at what they had, bring us a couple examples back in. I don't believe that ever happened.
Right.
So there were a number of issues surrounding it.
Oh, gotcha. So we didn't think about getting a sample of the bracket, but he does have the type of bracket here. And like I said, he had visited with a nursery in Manhattan, and they had said, oh, we priced so many, and this is really great. Whether it fits on our light pole or not, it kind of has two sides and it comes together, so it appears that it would fit on various sizes of poles. And the good thing is that they're permanently on the pole, so, and they're black, it'll look good with the pole, they're the same style. But what I think is really great is in the wintertime, you can hang Christmas wreaths on it. Because they would be permanently fixed.
All right. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Thanks for your work on this. I'd like to take a look at them, take a look at the polls and also kind of do a little research on these brackets.
Okay.
Just because, you know, there's a lot of other unintended consequences that come up just with St. Mary's, with the streetlights. Sometimes a little tighter on Main Street than a lot of cities. And we've already had a lot of experiences with streetlights getting kind of clipped and different things like that. So it's just, there's a lot of other things that need to be maybe taken into consideration. So I'd like to take some time and do a little research on that, take a look at where they'd be, and how the traffic patterns are and the spacing. You know.
Okay.
Just practical question go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Where would we take that from? Like streets, general fund somewhere? It's not a huge expense, since we're talking budget stuff, I wanna make sure
Well, it's the last item on the agenda, so we can
that's fine.
throw it around.
Thank you. So, just, yeah, I'd like to let's take a look at these brackets as well, but, you wanna go two hanging plants per pole, and then 2 potted plants on the ground next to the poles.
That's correct. Ideally, that's what we would love, but it is broken, the price is broken down into a couple of different options, depending on what you'd be willing to do.
And the pots are how big?
The pots are,
That's 26 inches.
I think they're, like those half barrels are, are they like
That's too high.
4 inches diameter?
Corners.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Anything up here?
Oh, I see them down there, yeah.
26 inches,
Yeah,
Mhm.
26 inches in
26,
diameter.
yeah.
big enough for wow.
So the Super Petunias out in front of the bookstore is what he's looking to do. And he does have an option for pots on there as well, containers. But they basically would look just like that. Those Super Petunias, they kind of go crazy and they do well in pots. They dry out pretty fast in hanging baskets, but pots do really well.
Kelly, thanks for doing this. In regards to locating the baskets at the base of the light poles, is there any concern about cars? Or is there enough space for cars to park without hitting those, or?
Well, and I think,
To look at.
yeah, and I think mainly we probably need to see like how far they would come in, because I think there's plenty of room so that no
I like
nose.
the idea. I love the
Yeah,
idea.
maybe no nose could hit the light pole, so we'd like to think that, it couldn't get close to a pot, but that is a good point. And if we bring them further towards the sidewalk,
Then
you
you're
know,
narrowing
I
off
know it
the
is,
walk
I know
space.
it's pretty tight on Main Street in general.
All right, so we
Did
have
you have them placed there, Greg, at all?
No, it's just fine.
Okay.
we have, take a look at the polls. And, we should be able to have a decision by the next meeting. If you have any, I'm curious about your input, Bob, in terms
Well,
of.
you might ask Don too about the weight and stuff on the
Okay.
poles.
You follow up with Don.
Thank you.
I thought that was one of the issues last time as well, was the weight, but I thought with the brackets that they had in mind last time, I thought that was gonna be, that would work, so, if I remember.
Anything else for now?
No.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
for the idea. Next item on the agenda, ordinance number 1353, authorization for providing construction of sewer main which would be calling the gravity flow addition, getting rid of the up pump. Go ahead.
Good evening, Kevin Cowan with Gilmore Bell, City's Bond Council. I was here last month talking about this topic and had mentioned at that time what the process would be, and so this is the first step where the governing body has an ordinance that recites and cites the authority that it has under state statutes for undertaking a project like this and issuing bonds to finance the cost of it. This particular statute requires that you designate this project by ordinance, and if you've looked at it, you have to reference where it begins and where it ends. All of our sewer statutes are very antiquated, and so that's just the way this particular one reads. You'll see that it references an estimated cost, which I pulled directly from the engineer's estimate of probable cost, which is $751,000. And then the statute requires that you authorize and put a not to exceed bond amount in this ordinance. I rounded up a little bit. The 775 would include all of the bond costs of issuance. I don't think it's going to be that high, but one of the variables, and we talked about this last time, is how the bonds would be sold. So if you have a public sale and an investment banking firm buys the bonds so it can underwrites the bonds and then it sells them to its customers, they'll want some sort of compensation. They usually take that in the form of a discount. So if, for example, your bond size was $775,000, we could put in the sale documents that you can take a discount, bidder, that it can't exceed a certain amount. Maybe it's 1%, but even at 1%, that would be, 7,000 plus. And so that's the one variable. If you don't have a public sale of the bonds, we talked about maybe a local bank or bank possibly purchasing the bonds, then those costs will be less. That won't be 775, it's probably closer to 760, 765 would be my guess. But I like to be conservative, and this is the first step, so this would cover all the possible eventualities if the bonds are sold and there's an underwriting discount. There's enough room there to cover those costs, and that's how the 775 was arrived at.
You've also said that if it was a local sale, that the interest rate might be a little higher on the bond, is that correct?
Yes. The only reason, and it's not universally true, it's just a local bank is maybe not on the pulse of the market that day. They're not bidding and buying and selling bonds every day. So, they do their best. And but the advantage, even if they're not right on market, is it's a simpler transaction. You don't have to have a prospectus prepared, which in the bond world, municipal bond world, is called an official statement. That's a little bit of expense and just dealing with some of those things. So I think that's what I said last time. If you get a pretty good rate, even if it's not right on top of the market from a local bank, but you avoid public sale requirements and some of these additional documents and expenses, it can be a good deal for you. So maybe a little bit extra interest cost, but you save something up front on deal costs because it's a little more streamlined.
Comments or questions, Francis? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You might be going to this next, but I guess two questions. First one, I see it not to exceed 775. So let's say we get a bid and the bid's 700, but the city wants to pay a couple $100,000 in cash up front. We can make it whatever we need to be, right?
Yes.
Second question is, you cover the first step of the process, you're probably gonna go through, can you walk through?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if this is passed tonight, you have then authorized the project and the bonds. That does a couple of things. One of the things it does is allow you to immediately start making financial commitments under our Kansas cash basis law, because one of the exceptions is if you have bond authority, if you've authorized bonds. And I don't know that you're close enough for that, but it's nice to have that in your hip pocket and know we don't have to worry about the cash basis law if we approve a contract with the engineer or an expenditure or a contract or whatever it is. So it does that. It also preserves your right to go back 60 days from tonight and reimburse anything you've spent in cash on the project from tax-exempt bond proceeds. There are exceptions to that. I know you've had engineering work done, engineering preliminary expenditures that you have to spend some money to get your arms around what is our project. We don't know what it's gonna cost. That's gonna impact whether we will proceed. Those sorts of things are an exception to the 60-day requirement. So if you started talking about this 6 months ago and paid engineers and things like that, that's all going to be okay. That 60-day look-back period is really just the hard construction. So that's step one. Step two is at some point, probably in the relatively near future, you all would say, we're ready to proceed with the project and sell the bonds. So that next step is what we call a sale resolution, where I would prepare it. It's short. It says, we've already authorized this project and the bonds, and now we're ready to move forward with it. And it mostly authorizes city staff and I as bond counsel, anybody else, if you had a financial advisor, to take the steps necessary to generate a sale on the bonds. Set a sale date, approve the sale documents, like a notice of bond sale. So that's the second step, just sort of preliminary. We need to authorize all the things that would happen before we have the bond sale. And then the third step, in terms of your action, is the bond sale, which would be presumably held on a meeting date where maybe it's 10 a.m. or something. You took bids, you'd receive bids, there'd be some determination as to what's the best bid that's universally the lowest interest cost to you, is going to be considered the best bid. And that bid would be approved at a meeting, and a bond ordinance and resolution would be adopted that evening. So second step, sale resolution, saying, we're going to do this, let's get set up to sell these. Third step is the sale itself. And then the governing body is finished with its action at that point, and the only thing to happen after that is to close on the bonds, and that's usually 2 to 3 weeks after the bond sale.
But somewhere in between there, we bid the project get done to make sure that we know what the project cost would be, right? I mean,
Yes,
and you work with the engineers on the timing of that? And,
yes.
okay, I
Now,
see.
you can proceed with the bond issue right now and say it's $775, and if we don't get a construction bid that works, we're going to work it some more and make sure that it comes in within, the right number. But if you have the flexibility, and as you say, maybe if you have some funds that you want to deploy, and if it's a $750,000 project, maybe you want to issue bonds for $650 because you have some cash you want to apply to it. Those things could be worked out. But as I was mentioning earlier, with this tonight, if you said, we're going to turn our engineers loose, ask them to go out for construction bids and bring those back to us, that doesn't have to be tied to the bond issue necessarily. You could accept that construction bid, let's say it's a month from now, and not violate the cash basis law. When you do that, you've made a financial commitment, and the cash basis law says you can't do that unless you've appropriated cash to that construction contract or you've authorized bonds. So again, we've taken care of that. You could accept the bid, and then based on that bid, again, if it's $650,000, you could say we need $650 to pay the construction and engineering, and then we have some bond costs on top of that. Let's say we need $675 all inclusive to get this done. Then we have that detail to do the sale resolution and say we're authorizing a bond sale for $675,000. Kevin, go do what you need to do, work with city staff to have a bond sale in a month and have those bids due. So yes, that it's not one of the bond authorization steps, but it is one of those things. And if that's the plan for the city, that makes a lot of sense. We've authorized it. Let's go bid it. Make sure the bids come in a way that we expect them to.
I just have the process, and I'm just curious about the timing of it, because there's no need to do a bond sale if we're not, sometimes these projects, when they bid, they come in a lot higher than the engineering estimate. Now, I probably won't hear, but it's happened to us on some things.
Or less. I mean, less is probably better than more, but if you did $775 and it turns out the bid's $550 and then you have $200,000 in unspent bond proceeds, we can deal with that, but it's still, you can't pay off the bonds immediately with the 200,000 of unspent proceeds. That's usually a few years out before you can pay off bonds early, so then you've got 200,000, you're accruing interest on it, you probably try to invest it as best you can, but yeah, if you have the ability to time this right, it's better to pinpoint it than not have over or under issuance.
So if we issue it for 700.
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed. And then you also mentioned we might have $200,000 extra that we can't pay back. Do we have to issue the bonds for the entire
No.
amount?
No, and I thought you'd asked that before, maybe that's not the question you're asking. No, this is your authorization, just under our state statute, this is what you have to do to be able to issue the bonds, but you don't have to use all of this authority. You can use 500 and say, we're gonna let the rest of that authority that we approve lapse because we don't need it.
In that, we would determine the exact amount we want to issue as we get closer, and that's what we sell, because we
Yes.
get to the sale. I also wanted to resolve, you said presumably when we open when we're trying to sell the bonds, we would get the lowest interest rate, but then earlier you said there are two basic options, sort of the local bank option where we might expect higher rate,
Yeah.
and some other system that's more complicated. So can we decide which of those we're doing before we sell the bonds?
Well, you can.
Otherwise,
Really good
the
question,
reason
and
I'm asking is because then it's
No.
not clear
Right.
just because of, okay, you get what I'm.
I didn't use precise enough language.
Okay.
It's the interest cost that we talk about for a bond sale includes the cost of issuance. And it's actually true interest cost, it's like all in, what are the costs? So, and it's a really good question.
You do a calculation to not, because it's always, all right,
Yeah.
well, over time it's this, and but
Yeah,
we meet it.
somebody might submit a bid for 3%, but they want a $7,000 discount, so you've got the interest cost plus the $7,000 that you're accepting as a discount for somebody to buy the bonds, which is, it could be called a fee, but it's usually just, we'll send you less money when we buy the bonds and call it a discount, versus if it was a local bank and they submit something for 3.5%, but no fees or anything like that. As I said, that's a good question, and we can work through
You
that.
will be able to see those as real numbers too, right? You will,
Yes.
okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
Is there a time limit? So once we pass this ordinance, is there a time limit in place that we have?
The only limit, and I referenced this earlier, is if you spent some cash, even the engineering, which is, an exception, you have 3 years, roughly speaking, under federal tax laws to reimburse that expenditure. So if you paid the engineer 6 months ago to get started on this, you have like 2.5 years from where we are right now to get bonds issued and to reimburse something for that far back. But that's really the only limit, is if you start thinking about, well, we got some things to reimburse, is there any time limit in that regard? And there is, but it's, again, it's a ways out there.
Thanks.
So we've numbered this ordinance number 1353.
Well, I'm sorry, but I just need to follow up on that. So look, we could reimburse
Yes,
if we've already spent money for this project, which suggests that we have to take that, and if we want to do that, if we want to pay for that out of, but I think we've paid for everything up to this point already, right? So there's really no reason to.
We can get reimbursed for it.
right.
Yeah, well, but
If
that's
you
a
want-
question.
if you want-
if
it's
you
another
want
really
to-
good question. If you said we spent $100,000, that's not part of the engineer's estimate of 751.
Yeah,
So you might have 851, and
but that's why I asked, because that could impact what we want to sell, bond for. Any follow-up?
I'm sorry, I
Oh,
thought,
if we already paid for it, I don't see a real reason to do that, but anyway, go ahead.
I might have misunderstood, but does that clock start now, or I thought it was from when this was signed, anything forward, not necessarily.
it is anything forward, for the most part, you go back 60 days from tonight, and then that's the start date going forward for what I just call hard construction costs. If you are acquiring land or rights of way, or you start buying pipe, or you pay a contractor, those are the things that reimbursement is concerned with. If it's engineering, the work you've had done just to, again, determine what is our project? Is it something we want to proceed with? And the cost will have something to do with that, but also some of the specifics. That's going to be okay with the outer limit. You can't wait forever to reimburse. It's 3 years from now. And again, it really is a good question. If you spent cash, if you don't want to reimburse it, that's fine. And maybe you paid the engineer in the last number of months and made the determination, that's fine. We'll pay the engineer, that's not going to be part of the bond issue. Then, again, this works. If something changed, we decided, well, this happened, we had a repair to make, we'd really like to have some cash back, then we could always amend this and come back and say, it turns out we really wanted 800,000 total because we want some of that cash back, and we could just amend this ordinance and publish it and get to the same place.
All right. If there are no other questions, and I'm confident that we are ready, we want to do this project, that's why we went through this. So in order for us to move forward, we have to approve this ordinance. So I am ready to approve this ordinance, and unless there's further discussion, I would be happy to hear a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 1353 as presented.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Four.
So that is approved, ordinance 1353 approved,
So this,
4-0.
there's a summary ordinance that can be published instead of the full ordinance, and he provided, the city attorney reviewed it, and we'll sign it, and we'll put that in the Potawatomi Times, we'll post this on the website for 7 days. But then we have to then provide 2 weeks from now, after you approve those minutes, excerpts of tonight's minutes that are certified by the city clerk. But that's to be done. The only thing we have to worry about tonight, getting signed and stamped is this ordinance.
Yes.
All right, we can do that.
And on the excerpt, one of the reasons we use the excerpt is if we are pressed for time,
Yeah.
we don't have to wait for them to approve the minutes. We just rely on the
Oh, so
clerk to certify and say, this was the vote on it. It's not the full minutes, it's just an
So you've corrected me then, because I thought we need to wait for the minutes to be approved at the next meeting. So you're saying that, okay, because we have an example that was filled out way back in 2004.
Yeah.
So we'll do it then. Well, I appreciate that, because I was confused on that. We'll get on that then tomorrow.
All right,
And then we'll just talk, I mean, if you go to bid for construction, I mean, that sounds like that may be the next.
I will talk to our engineering firm and ask them for a time frame, and then we'll probably bring it to the next meeting, and then let the commissioners know, and we'll go from there. We wanna move, but we gotta get a plan, so I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
The next item on the agenda is sidewalks.
Yeah, so some things that just come up this year recently. On a bunch of projects. We had just down here on Fifth Street, Fifth and Palmer, just to the south of Palmer. A couple weeks ago, had a storm drain system, 24-inch pipe collapse in the street, we're on the edge of the street. And so to repair that, we had to dig it out, of course, and all around it, and we had to take out a portion of Mark Thomas's driveway to his house. So, you know, that's pretty obvious, we need to replace his driveway. But on there, we're right next to it, the sidewalk's in poor condition. I think I sent a picture out of that sidewalk. Yes, that's the one. And I don't know, he gave a quote, for the sidewalk separate from the driveway. Was it 1830? Or, I don't know, he just wanted to do a side, maybe a volunteer project sometime, but there's that. And then another sidewalk, but it's part of a drain on Fifth Street, right, to the west side of Fifth Street between the railroad tracks and Bertrand. And it drains the alley behind Sugar Creek back there. All that water runs behind them buildings and then out and under this little walkway. And anyway, it's cracked, and the owner, John Dorbeck of that building on the corner, is complaining because it is cracked and he thinks the water's filtering into his basement. He's had a lot of water issues. So I didn't get a quote for that from Ornamental, but my estimate is 8 by 13 with, it's a 2-foot channel running through that sidewalk to run that water out to the curb. And based on $10 per square foot, it'd be another $1,000 for that square to get replaced in that channel. He was gonna try to get me something today, but I haven't received anything yet. I think I sent out a picture of that too, before he did.
I don't recall.
Yeah, he talked
Bob.
about you.
Really quick on, Mark Thomas property,
Yes,
the 1830, was that to replace the sidewalk from his driveway to Palmer? That was okay.
Did he request that we do this?
no, I was just looking at it when we were there and I was like, wow, that's,
Has he been approached about fixing the sidewalk himself?
I don't think so. He talked about it, he's, if I had money, I'd replace it all the way around the corner, and he just had back surgery, he's been out of work, 78 years old.
And then with Dorbeck, he did request that we fix it.
Yes, and that kind of part of our drainage, I guess.
Yeah, see, that's more clearly the result of something that we did, like drainage,
Yeah,
I don't,
wouldn't you say?
it may be drainage, but it's still his, in my opinion, it's still his responsibility as a property owner.
Well, but
Both
you need to
cases.
fix the drainage part, isn't that what you're talking about?
yeah,
Oh, the drain, you're
Yeah,
not
he's not
saying?
talking about a sidewalk
Sidewalk.
there.
right.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you, Matt. We need-
When I first sent that email out a month ago, I did say the whole sidewalk,
Yeah,
but that's not, he never asked for that.
he just wants.
I just went over and looked at it and took some pictures and thought, well, some of this, more than this needs replaced, and Bob corrected me on that, so
Oh,
he
okay.
did not ask for that.
Drainage, that's a separate.
And there was one more that, this estimate from Ornamental includes, and that is the, corner of Second and Bertrand, down by the car lot, where people go around that corner and they go over that curb that was just all replaced last summer with the C-Clip project. And all that dirt and grass has just been squashed out, and it's just a mud hole now. And he was, said he could fill that in, that would be included in this 4,300 total, 48.
Is that comes with trailer traffic? Or-
I think it's a lot of cars, trucks, trailers.
Yeah, right at the corner of Cedar Place.
Yeah.
I know it,
Actually,
yeah, I guess I've seen cars do that.
maybe down a laid back curve, I don't know, but anyway, yeah, they're going over a lot of vehicles. So, yeah, this price is for the driveway, the sidewalk there by Mark's.
So the driveway is something that we have to do.
Yeah.
Because we
Tore out a portion of it.
And if I'm looking at the picture, is the driveway on the far end?
Yeah.
So you would be coming back toward us in the picture.
Driveway's on the other side of that second tree.
It says Palmer on this one. So you would have to report this as the armory.
Oh, so I was on the wrong one.
So this is Palmer.
So that's near the armory, so it's. I was
Going
on
down
the
to the
side
park, heading into the park.
So in fact, that's kind of in that main walking area from, in the common consumption area construct, right? Around the corner, down past the armory into the park at this point.
Yeah, there's painted consumption area, entering and leaving common, right on that corner.
I only bring that up because we're kind of, this would be an argument potentially for the investment because
So it'd be here.
and then further down.
Well, this is, sorry. Driveway is right here, so it would just be this section that he's talking
Yeah.
about.
Go ahead, Francis. Did you want to say something?
After you.
Well, I guess I'll finish my thought, which is, it seems to me that our effort, part of our effort for the downtown beautification maybe is we're kind of making that corridor down Bertrand and then down past the armory to the park a highly traveled area. We're encouraging that, I think. So this location, in my opinion, since we talked about our approach here as we look at each thing individually, given that we're already doing the work there, given that this is a high volume connection between downtown and the park, this seems like a reasonable expenditure to me. That's what I have to say. Did you want?
Yeah, just real quick on all three, I went down and took a look at this, it's about 65 feet or so, not including the driveway, so it's a little over 300 square feet, so it's after about $6 per square foot, which is all within reason. The sidewalk just in that section is pretty bad, probably because of the big trees. Once you get past the driveway, it's not so bad, it's a little overgrown, but it's pretty level, so I would agree, it's a good project. As far as the Dorbeck building there, it seems there might be a little bit more to it than just that drain. And I talked to John about it, and he said he's gotta do a little bit more work behind his building, because sometimes he gets few items back there, but also the whole slope goes into his building, so he might have to shape it up, so it might be, I told him, I said, a lot of times we've done this in the past with different property owners, when it's a stormwater drainage, city property, their property, just got to work together to make sure we're solving the problem. So that was just, I don't think it's just the sidewalk, I think
Right.
some of that's the drainage area as well.
Right.
And then as far as the St. Mary's Auto Sales, I forget exactly what it looks like, but I remember what you talked about, so I can figure that out.
So I think to clear, you're just talking about making sure we get the timing right over near John's place.
I just wanna make sure that rather than just replace that sidewalk, we're making sure it's thought through to where the problem's actually gonna get solved. Because if he has to reshape something back there, and in order to get the proper slope, just to make sure it's all gonna mesh together as far as the grade. Because it's not just the sidewalk, he's got a lot of issues with the slope in the back there. So we can't just move forward with the sidewalk without kind of coordinating.
Correct, that's what I just wanted to make sure I understood that, but.
I think for the fact, right there on Fifth Street at Thomas's place, it's a common consumption area, that leads to a public ground and highly trafficked, I would be in favor of getting that replaced. And I did the same thing with Second Street.
Are you looking at these separately, or are we looking at all one, right?
Well, this quote for 4830 includes 3 different things, the driveway, the sidewalk to the corner, from the driveway to the corner, and filling in that square down by Seaver's,
So not up by John's.
not the sidewalk.
Which I think fits pretty well with the discussion, because that one's gonna require a little bit more thought,
Yeah.
I think, and coordination.
Well, he's gotta do some work
Yeah,
first.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, the Second Street, yeah, it needs to be fixed, I agree, and, replacing the driveway, I agree with as well, but not sidewalk, that's up to the property owner to do. I don't care if that common consumption area led all the way to the gates of heaven, it's not our responsibility, it's theirs, as far as I'm concerned. So if you're looking for a consensus, no.
Looking for a motion, because there's a dollar amount at stake here, so,
All right.
thank you.
So I would entertain a motion to accept, now, this is, I want to, before I expect, this is just gonna be everything other than the working up there with John Doravek's property. Okay, so- Because that's what the estimate is for. So I would entertain a motion to accept the estimate from Ornamental Concrete in the amount of $4,830 for work on Fifth and Palmer and Second and Bertrand.
Mr. Mayor, I so move.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all those in favor vote aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
And 1 no, so 3 ayes and 1 no, and so that's approved. Thanks, Bob. Residential speed study. Hello, Chief.
Evening, gentlemen. So it should have been in the packet, but the final draft of the Olson speed study came through. There were just some minor grammatical changes. And I guess tonight's finally the decision based on that study, I believe. Basically, they support, or the findings support a reduction up to 20 miles an hour of residential speed limits within the city. Back before we did the study, my understanding is Bob has the signage for the 20 mile an hour, but if there's discussion and then that has to be changed. That was just because that was before we thought there'd be more discussion and whatnot. So, yeah.
Do we have any questions or comments on that? Francis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Chief, looking at this, it seems like I don't understand why they went to 20 instead of a recommended 25. Because you take a look at all the speeds that people are traveling. If we go 20, we're asking the 85 percentile to completely change habits. And it seems to go against a lot of the speed studies in the past that we've looked at. And it looks like the normal would fit more around a 25 as opposed to a 20. And I know there's a few areas in the city where 20 is reasonable, but if you take a look at the habits of what people are currently doing, they're kind of already very close to 20 as opposed to 30. They're already inclined towards the lower speeds in that area. And looking at the number of vehicles that get over 30 in the time of day, sometimes it's early in the morning, very late at night. I don't think speed limit change is gonna affect any of those folks. So it seems like the majority of people are already going slow. But to take a look at all the streets in the city and to go down to 20, I guess I'm asking a question, making a statement, but just driving through St. George, it just seems very unreasonable to have a 20 miles per hour for that length of time, for that amount of streets. It just, in talking to a couple other people, seems like a lot of other states are moving towards a 25 miles per hour as kind of a norm. And it seems to fit a little bit better than the 20. You're not necessarily in the downtown. I guess, why do you think they went to 20 with a recommendation, not 25? And what are your thoughts on 20 versus 25?
I think the studies are saying that, the information and data would support lowering down to 20. So I guess in general, the lowering is being supported. Now what the number is between that and 20, I guess is up for you guys to discuss. If you want to agree on whether to implement the full 20 or modify it to 25. I'm happy and surprised that the study came back that in general, everybody's pretty much going 20. And I'm not really surprised, because I think that from talking around, a lot of people kind of assumed it was already 20. They weren't aware that it's actually 30. Funny story, we had an officer formerly worked here that actually stopped somebody because they thought it was supposed to be 20, but it actually wound up being 30. So it's kind of like even that level of kind of misconception, but I don't know. Yeah, as far as what we should go with,
Well, what do you think? Surely you anticipated I would ask you that question. I mean,
there's a few studies going on at once, so it's kind of bleeding together. Probably, we have the signs for the 20, if people are already going 20, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, the study will be in place, if you want to change it again.
Chief, I have a quick question with this study. So like here on, it says Bertrand Avenue, they recommend 20 miles an hour. Is that for the full length of all the way through town? Because if you're going eastbound, you go 30 and then until you hit, what is it, 3rd Street, I think, and then it goes down to 20. So are they saying,
We can't control that. I think they're meaning just in the downtown. Because you're right, it's, I think, 50, 30, and 20. And we would not be able to regulate.
so that's not getting changed?
that's a key.
Okay, all right, because I was gonna say, that would feel like paternity leave.
I think they just did change it, though. Doesn't it go 50, 40, 30? Sort of.
Yeah, there's a 40.
There's another step down.
There's a 40. I know eastbound there's a 40 going out of town
Yeah.
towards Rossville.
Well, I understand that the 85th percentile is closer to 25 than 20, but.
Chief, I appreciate all the work you've done on this. I think 20 is very appropriate. And it's not, I don't say this because of the fact that, we're looking to generate, more tickets and more money coming. And, I know the city does not have that reputation now. I don't want them to have it in the future. I look at it from a safety standpoint. But I also look at it from a practical standpoint from the law enforcement officer's perspective, from your guys' perspective, and I can speak to this somewhat. If there's a speed limit of 25 and I clock somebody or you clock somebody going 28, I'm just gonna say, hey, slow down to 25. But if there's a speed limit of 20 and they're going 27, 28, that's a different ballgame. And I think it's worth it. I think from a safety standpoint, it's worth it. And if it saves one life, I think it's well worth it.
Yeah.
So I would like their recommendations, go with it, go 20 in all the residential areas.
And there would be, just like with the four-way stop, like we did that one, an awareness campaign where we would push out to social media and Everbridge and all that a period where, grace period before we would cite anybody. Although I don't anticipate any issues, just like St. Mary's are usually pretty well behaved, even when we added the four-way, we didn't have a great deal of issues there.
Do you have a comment about the speed limit?
Oh.
You were going back to the four-way?
Second Street, that's gonna stay at 30. I guess that's not residential.
I did today get the draft study on Second Street, so I guess that's something that, yeah, that would stay, that is posted 30, I think 30 or 35.
It's 30 all the way right now.
Yeah,
I hope it doesn't go any higher.
yeah.
Well, for what it's worth, my comment would be, I was surprised by how low the actual speeds were in the observation period, sort of pleasantly surprised. And I like the idea of making it 20 miles an hour in all the residential areas as recommended. So I like the recommendation.
What do we do from here? What are the steps from here?
Sorry.
We wait to hear Chuck say
Oh,
something.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Chuck.
So the recommended is 20, so is that, I guess to Francis's point, you can lower the speed limit anywhere between 30 down to 20, or, I do like the idea of 25 miles an hour.
Oh, man.
So this is split.
By the way,
I'm
for-
by jury, but.
Yeah,
50 minutes show up,
But
put Nathan on the phone.
Go ahead.
that was just my question of, do we have the ability to, it's not, it says 20 in here, but can we?
But it would be unless otherwise posted, correct? So we would have the latitude, we wouldn't want to raise it above what it currently is, I would assume.
Yeah.
But we have the latitude to, and I'm sorry, Francis, as I look at just these streets, and I know that those are the only streets that, I think that Apache Street and 8th Street are very different considerations. So I think it's pretty clear Apache should be 20, whereas I think it's arguable that 8th could be higher. It's residential, but it's broader, it's more, so I think there is some room for that, but I'm sorry, go ahead, Francis, finish your thought.
Just one final comment on the 25. I think, just take a look at other states, what we've seen, what I've seen, with a little bit of research, partly because of the bill that was introduced in the legislature, had a hearing to allow cities to go down to 25 in residential areas without an engineering study. What I found is that a lot of states are already doing this. They're already going to 25 in the residential areas. And obviously you can't predict the future, but I would anticipate, based on the chair of transportation, that we'll pass that legislation in Kansas next year. And I would imagine it would be slowly become the norm around the state is to move to 25 in the residential areas. And once again, I think driving through St. George it's very strange to drive 20 miles per hour through that amount of space. I do think the 25 is more reasonable. I think it was fair.
Again, point out to Francis's point, I mean, most of these 85 percentile, right around 25 miles an hour.
Right, but that's fine, but that's observed speed. What we're trying to do is set what we think the speed should be rather than match what the speed currently is. See what I'm saying?
Also, Mr. Mayor, just one more thing that I'd like to add. St. Mary's is a very unique city within the state, within the country, the number of children that we have as opposed to any other municipality or jurisdiction. We have a lot of kids, and we're gonna keep having a lot of kids. I don't think there's any question in anybody's mind that thing is gonna change. And these kids, they play on the sidewalks, they play in the streets around town, and I think 20 miles an hour is very reasonable in these residential neighborhoods. Buddy, I mean, if you're going faster than that, it doesn't take, I mean, I don't know if you've ever experienced it or seen it, or, you know, you hit a person, you hit a pedestrian at, you know, even 20 miles an hour, the amount of damage that you're gonna do. I've seen firsthand the amount of damage that can be done to, you know, bicycles, are supposed to be, more importantly, the human body, even at 20 miles an hour. So I just think, just to be, for a safe, just purely out of safety, overabundance of safety, we go with 20 miles an hour.
All right, so what kind of action can we take here, Maurice? Is this, we can wait for Nate to be here next time, or do we have an odd number? Or what kind of action would this be?
I would just poll everybody and see if there's a consensus, or get 3 of the 4. And if there's 3, ask for a motion. If there's not, I just table it until the next meeting. Is the only expense here, Bob, signs?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as-
Yeah. Okay, so I would just ask 25 or 20 and then see.
Yeah, I think I could answer too, but I'll ask.
Make it official. So 20?
20.
25.
I'd be inclined towards 25, happy to do some more research on it, but I'm at 25.
Yeah. All right,
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
you?
Well, I'm inclined toward 20, but I can see 25. And for the, we was lower.
We put it to a vote.
And I'm not sure that it's profoundly necessary to do it tonight without Nate here. I mean, I don't know.
I agree, it does not have to be done tonight, but
Yeah. And, we do have the latitude to, I mean, we don't want to get too complicated, but we have the latitude, correct, to choose specific streets that are a little bit, and post it as 25 rather than 20.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, the sign at the beginning of town would be speed limit 20 unless otherwise posted, and then change it. I guess my situation is I see both sides of the argument. I prefer 20, but I could accept 25. And if the whole commission is here and we have some kind of then I'd be willing to go with either one. But I don't see the need to finalize this today unless you're.
Okay. No.
and you won't, if it's the next meeting, you won't need to sit here to answer any questions.
Oh, but we like having, no, we don't. I think he's answered all the questions that he could.
Very good, so it's carried over,
Yeah,
thank
we'll
you.
carry it over.
Can I give a quick update on 6324? So, with the help of Maurice, one of the things that we kept getting called for, and we started noticing were a lot of really, and also it kind of went together with what Caroline Gray was bringing up last meeting, a lot of just massive loads coming up Highway 63, trying to make the turn there in 24, having a lot of difficulty chewing up the curbs, sidewalks, even having a hard time navigating that bump there at the railroad. So we did, like I said, with the help of Maurice, accumulated some footage and photographs of some of these loads just not being able to make it through the intersection and what the condition was of the curb. And they've agreed to amend the permitting process so that some of these trucks, for the time being, are not coming north or south of 63. And they are studying the issue further to see what it is we can do for the long term. So I just want to give you that update.
Could you give an update on the TEAP?
Well, do you have any questions on that?
But the permitting in terms of what kind of trucks are allowed on that, okay.
Yeah, so they reduced the size that when these truckloads or firms want to get a permit, it's now going to reject ones that are just too big.
I don't want to delay this. I'm just curious, did they change it? Because I had noticed really big trucks too that I hadn't seen before, had something.
I don't know, that's weird. It's just suddenly we started getting a string of nearly daily.
There's one just parked over
Yeah,
there?
there's one parked over here that's trying to figure out their permit now. Yeah, because they can't make it through that. At some point, something occurred where they just were not aware that that intersection cannot handle the size of trucks in there. Parts for Jeffries or I don't know for what.
And they scraping the street in the north
Yeah.
side there of the tracks. Some of them pretty low to the ground.
Yeah, so that is being worked on. And then, yeah, and then we did get the Second Street T draft today, but that'll have to be, still looking through that.
But they went into great detail.
Yeah, it's very, very good detail.
Thank you. The next item is the 2026 budget.
So in front of your paper copies of what was sent out for the packet. There is a proposed mill rate. Well, first of all, I think we should report that there was a work session that was held last Tuesday, and various items were discussed, but no action was taken, of course. But from the general discussion, I made some changes to what was looked at there, and one of the changes was the increase. We budgeted sales tax fairly low last year in the general fund, and then also the CD interest. I just threw some numbers in there that were obviously subject to change. One of the tougher things this year was we did not get property insurance renewal for the previous cycle until this year. So when you go through there and you see that there's no liability insurance, no property insurance for 2024, but there's $40,000 for 2025, we're paying for 2 years this year. Now, it should have been paid last year, and that would have, of course, reduced the carryover. And it's a zero-sum type thing, but it just seems pretty, substantial. And that they've gone up again, of course, so.
Do we have any discussion points? Those, go ahead, Frank.
Thanks, Mayor. On the valuation increase,
Page 21 is there.
thanks.
The assessed valuation of $25,825,500.
I don't know if it's in here, but in the past, I think there's been a sheet that shows how much of the increase in valuation comes from.
New construction.
Yes. versus-
Yeah. Interesting, I still have that, I can send it out. The budget process has changed, that used to have to be entered into the very front pages, and they're not, the front pages aren't on here, but it's not on there anymore, I had to do the sheet, I'll send you out.
And yeah, just the reason for the question is sometimes when the valuation increases, just because property values are being assessed higher, keeping the same mill is gonna be a tax increase, whereas if it's a valuation increase through new growth, new construction,
Mhm.
we can keep the same mill and people don't see property tax increase. So that's, wanna kind of take a look at that because
Yeah, I think that's what we talked about earlier today, that what is the source of the valuation?
Yeah, and
increase? And I
It
don't
used to be I
know.
had to fill that out, and you'd have gotten those early sheets and those other drafts, but I'm not sure there's a column for it anymore, so, but I believe it's on the,
yeah, and then I got just a couple ideas. I don't wanna complicate the budget, but I think this is something we talked about a little bit, attempted to set up over the years, but I think it's becoming, in my mind, a little bit more important to have the discussion because of the projects in the sewer and also the water. And it's the capital improvement funds. Maybe just this year, start with the water and the sewer, and we don't have to make the transfer, but at least schedule a transfer. And throw a dollar amount in there for the water fund and the sewer fund, so the water fund would transfer into the water capital improvement fund. Because we have all these projects coming up, these projects, they might happen every year, they might happen every 2 years or 3 years. So to kind of build up that fund, so we have $500,000 in the fund, so we can go out and do a $400,000 or $500,000 project. But I think it helps having that savings account essentially for the big projects. And especially with the bonds coming up, we can start transferring in, getting some improvement money ready to go. But I would suggest throwing in, just like I said, we can just throw in any number, we don't have to transfer that whole amount. But I think starting with the water and the sewer at least, those would be a good place to start. And my recommendation, just for a generic filler number, which isn't so generic because when I run my 10-year plan, that's kind of where I think it should be, is about $200,000. Just budget that in to transfer out of the water fund into the water capital improvement fund, out of the sewer fund into the sewer capital improvement fund. And the intention there is they would pay for large capital improvement projects, which are generally planned. Sometimes it's an emergency that comes up, but it would be for planned out projects.
I like that.
200
We've
each.
talked about it before. For example, and I know we talk about this number a lot, but we were paying debt $230,000 or something a month,
A year.
a year. I'm sorry. Yeah, wow.
It'd be a lot.
That's a lot of sewage. $230,000 a year. Well, that seems like a good. I mean, we're already setting that money aside, so to speak. Anyway, I agree with that, and I would just like to add, I would really like to have a capital improvement fund for Park and Rec, because we're trying to put pressure on the rec committee to provide us a master plan, and we don't know what the budget requirements are, but we know it's gonna be more than we have budgeted right now. So I really like the concept. That's a little trickier to find where that money's gonna come from. Okay, but I'd at least like to have the budget line, just so that we're aware of
So-
it.
On the transfers, there's two ways that are pretty easy to do. One is put it in the budget, and you go through the revenues and make sure that we have $200,000 to transfer out of there each year, because we're spending the hell out of that $233,000 a
Well, I
year.
know, that's why it's.
Okay, so we have to make sure there's enough to do it. Another idea would be, like we do with the golf course at the end of the year, you can do a transfer at the end of the year based on a resolution. And that way you can see how much money's there and make a decision. And not that what you're saying is wrong or bad, it's just that we have to account for that $200,000 being budgeted. And if, is it generating, I know the sewer plan is the water fund generating $200,000 additional each year to transfer out? And we just have to run the number. I suggested, for instance, maybe it's time, middle of the year, to do a rate review. And, it may seem odd to do that after the budget. The budget is a legal document required by the state. Use round numbers, but when you really get down to it, you need to sharpen your pencil and see how we're going to end the year. These costs, these insurance costs are this year. That $150,000 deductible isn't accounted for as far as the transfers to the sales tax fund. But if you do less work, like on the golf course, and there's savings there, because there's $150,000 that's not accounted for as far as transfers out. But I'm open to whatever you want, of course.
I think you're right. It seems to me that I don't disagree with the capital improvement funds. I think they're a very good idea, but the ultimate question is, where does the money come from? And if we have to, is it worth, the question we need to ask ourselves is it worth possibly raising those rates in order to get to the capital improvement, to get the capital improvement fund going to where 5-10 years down the road, we're not hit by something that we don't have the money to pay for.
I agree, having the reserve is great. My only concern is the sewer plant. There was $50,000 or so dollars tonight. There's been a series of pumps. I don't know if there's an end in sight in those kind of expenses. It just seems like every time we have a discussion about it, there's $30,000 here, there's $50,000. There was $30,000 for the well 7 in the park, right? I just want to make sure that before we put it to the budget, that we believe it's going to generate that money to transfer out. Because even if you don't make the transfer, you still have to account for it on the revenue side. And I can do that just by increasing the revenue, you know, just,
So there's a lot of different ways to do, I don't know, what do you wanna call it? Long-term planning, asset management, whatever, but on some of those bigger dollar amounts, in the capital improvement fund, we can almost take a look at the major assets. Nothing will be perfect. There'll always be stuff that comes up, but, the grid classifier, that's kind of been something, it's been on the target list for several years. We've talked about it multiple times. The HVAC system down there has been on the target list for several years. So those can almost be, instead of coming out of the regular day-to-day fund, they can almost come out of the capital improvement fund. And so it'll reduce the big fluctuations out of the regular fund.
yeah, just a good example would be the squad car. We transfer money to the city's reserve fund, it keeps the police department fund year to year, it's not a big increase. I'm just saying that we need to verify where the money's coming from, if the fund is generating enough to make that transfer. Now, we know the sewer plant has that money. I'm not sure if there's an end in sight to that money being spent down there, as far as big time expenses.
Which I totally agree, but a lot of those, I think Mike's got a list, and when I sat down with him, earlier this year, late last year, kind of going through the list, and the engineer would swung by at the same time, and I think a lot of those can be line itemed out. And kind of been, we throw a price tag on them and almost anticipate, okay, 2026, this machine, that machine, that machine, and
Yeah.
kind
And one of the good things of the reserve fund is they're non-budgeted. So once you get the money over there, you don't have to worry about that sort of stuff. So I think it's a good idea. I think we should go through where the sewer plant has 233, and we can transfer that, and it'll be there, it'll be the same as spending out of the regular budget as far as
Right,
that.
which is what we're doing
But is
now.
there water money available, because there is that project that's still ongoing from Ogunic, and there's additional costs in there because of them pipes. I just want some assistance with these rates, just to verify that we're gonna end this year okay. And then, but I'm fine to whatever you want, I can insert numbers on revenue that would cover any transfer, and if it didn't happen, you assume, don't do it. So. But as far as anything else with the specifics, if you look at let's look at page 7. Page 7 is the general fund revenue page, and I would say look at line item 4,200. 4,200 is the sales tax line item. Now, in this version of the budget, the actual for 2024 is the same. Came in last year at 531,000. I believe we budgeted like 425 or 450, and I increased that to 475 in both these years here. So that's just budgeting a little tighter. It's not the end of the world. I just want,
Yeah.
and then the CD interest, the numbers I had always budgeted low. And we mentioned it during the work session, so I thought what could be, so I just increased that. So.
Mr. Mayor, so the one, I think, as always, very good. The question earlier. So here's kind of the main reason for the question is to try to, hopefully not have a tax increase or a massive tax increase. A little bit of valuation increase in the property that's gonna happen. But to try to maybe keep the mill levy closer or the same as the prior year would be something I think would be prudent. And then that would bring in, I think you had a note in the spreadsheet, about $19,000 more to keep the mill levy what it was last year as opposed to
That doesn't
lowering it.
sound like a note I would have sent.
It was in the spreadsheet.
So
No,
the state spreadsheet has those, I don't have any of those, and some of the funds I delete those. That's part of the spreadsheet.
I was reading your notes.
Yeah, I have lots of notes, but there's a chart outside of the fund page that calculates mill levy and tells you what that is. But I have lots of no's
Okay.
that are embedded in the spreadsheet, of course. But regardless,
I can agree that, but I think it's more trying to keep the mill levy about the same. And then that'll bring in a little bit more revenue in
Okay.
the taxes, but I think backing off on the local sales tax might be the deal.
I'll take, so just so you know, tonight's meeting is the first. We have to notify the county if you're gonna exceed the revenue neutral rate by the 20th. So you have the next meeting to finalize this version, and then what you send to them would be the maximum. You know, it can go down at the public hearing or the revenue neutral rate here, whenever. So I want you to keep that in mind. So we have one more regular meeting to decide what you're gonna send to the county, and then it sits idle theoretically until the hearing is sometimes between August 20th and September 20th.
Well, I just want to follow up on, I think what Francis was just talking about with the mill levy is really just an extension of the previous discussion about finding some money to build up capital improvement funds or reserve funds. Because that's the kind of thing where we could start putting money toward a capital improvement fund over in the Park and Rec. And it looks to me like, even though you upped the sales tax, I think it's still pretty conservative.
Yes, it
So
is.
maybe we want to do, consider kind of a hybrid solution on where we get in capital improvement funds. We do a drill down on where the valuation increase has come from, so we can decide if it's reasonable for us to keep the mill levy, because the mill levy has gone down as a number over the last 3 years.
Because the valuation keeps
Because of the
going up.
valuation.
Yes.
But if we could see where that valuation increase is coming from, I think we could see, we could be in a better position to see if leaving the mill levy as it has been really has negligible impact on actual taxes paid by citizens. If we can do that, that gives us a little bit of room, in addition to maybe some extra stuff from taxes, where we do your option of, we don't commit to it, but we have the line item there, and we just have to remember at the end of the year, we make that resolution transfer.
So just for clarification, am I being directed to put a transfer in from the sewer to the sewer reserve fund, or whatever that one's called, and the water to the water reserve fund, whatever, capital improvement fund?
I think certainly we can do the sewer, that's sort of I would like, yes, I would like to do both of those and establish at least the line for a capital improvement fund for in Parks and Rec, wherever we put that. So for that capital improvement for the, but we can just, it's something that we'll have to rely upon you to remember, which I think bearing in mind toward the end of
Why
the
would
year.
just say that you can put the budget funds in for the water and sewer in there, and then if we're into the Park and Rec, I think you can evaluate at the end of the year if there's money that can be transferred.
Yes, that's
And
what I
that way we don't have to budget for it and account for it as an expense.
But we'll have the line, we'll have the place to put it when we want to.
Well, we already have a place.
Oh, we do
I
have,
th-
okay.
Well, we have the facility plan or whatever. It just takes an ordinance to rename stuff or whatever. Or Park and Rec Fund is partly park. It could be a line item in there. That sort of stuff.
Okay, I think it's, I don't.
But I just want to know what to
think it's
change.
prudent to do
Because once I make
anything.
those changes, I'm shipping this off to the auditor for review. Please keep looking at it. If you see any errors, I need to know about them.
Can I just finish this? But can you give us some more granular sense of where the valuation increases are coming from?
You know what, if you just give me 1 minute,
Well,
I can go print it off.
see what I'm saying? And we really have to find a way to get some money to support a master plan for the park. That'd come from something. I could open that, huh? Is it in the electronic one, right? Is it in the electronic one?
I don't know.
Is there worth, we talked about this before, but setting up a fund for storm-related damages. This year, since everything's getting flooded, it's one of those things where
You know, for your next term. Yeah, Chuck asked, I guess I'll wait for Maurice, but just in case, there is a spot to note, bonds. Should we somehow acknowledge we're expecting that in 2026? I thought that's that question. I didn't even make it run on. This is terrible for our YouTube presence. YouTube has a dead airtime. Are you kidding me?
Keep talking.
Losing subscribers.
We're going to set politician history by saying nothing.
Tell us a little bit about the big beautiful bill.
Take one, since then pass it down, give you your copy. Pass it down.
Oh.
Everybody, you have 2 sheets. The staple just unplugged on me. So this is everything we get from the county. So that top page there, very top, it says new improvements, 211,815. Remodel renovation, 13,800. But those numbers used to have to be entered, and I never understood I just figured out how to do it, got it double checked and put them in there. But that's why I'm gonna have the auditor review this. So.
Just taking an average.
I don't know, do I have the right number in there? I gotta double check myself.
Well, it says number 2, personal property including oil, gas, and mobile homes.
Well, so-
2,200. What does that mean?
I don't know, the number that I had was the one that showed total value, and they had the new improvements broken out. Some years I thought I was supposed to add that together, but you do not. You use the new improvement one, or the total value one, of 25,805, and I think they break it out below that, just to show you the increase, or some of the increase.
Well, let's see that 255 is on the line item.
So what's-
Whatever personal property is. They break that out.
Oh, and then you have to look, and then you subtract the difference and do a percentage. It's a combination of increased valuation and new stuff, so obviously, that of course is the answer. That print twice. Oh, 2 funds. One's for the general, one's for the, right. And then this is shows, that's for whatever, so that's it. I'm not gonna do it during a meeting, but I can do the math problem if you want me to and send it out.
5% increase. I had another question, actually. Do we need to, since we're gonna be selling bonds, does that need to
Nah,
go
we're not gonna do anything about it. That, when you sell the bonds, like he said tonight, that automatically extends your bond, your budget authority, you have all that.
Okay, I
And
just
then-
noticed that, or Chuck noticed, there's actually a spot for it.
But we'll do a bond amendment.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, the debt page.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna, we won't know the total amount issued prior to this being approved. Well, we might, but I say don't worry about it.
okay.
It'll go in there each and every year after. So, but not this year.
So I would appreciate some more.
What I'm gonna do is I'll just tell you what last year's assessed valuation
Yes.
was, subtract off this current one, and then you can see the difference, if that's what you're asking.
Is that what you did?
Did you do the math? I'm not gonna do it.
If my quick math is correct, about $1 million in just valuation increase. So, which is about a 4% increase. So we were at 24.6, now we're at 25.6 if we take away new improvements. So if I'm understanding it all correctly, we keep the same mill. People will see, as far as their city tax dollars for property tax would go up about 4% at the same mill.
so next meeting, we need to be prepared to, declare, it's pretty clear we're gonna see the revenue.
Well, the actual
rate,
number,
and
though.
Set the number that we want with a max number as well.
You'll be setting the number, and then that's what'll go out in the truth and taxation notices with all the other ones that are exceeded.
And our goal is to approve the budget in that meeting.
No, just the TNT notice to the county.
Go ahead.
Just a suggestion, Mr. Mayor, because we can go down, we can bring it down. Would it be a good idea just to start with the mill being the same year over year? And that'll set the high limit, and then if we do wanna back it on off, we certainly can. But if that's a good starting point, just.
No, that's fine. I just want you to know that I'm sending this to the auditor tomorrow, and barring some mistake, that I be,
That has
whatever.
come through loud and clear, Maureen.
Okay, so, what you do from that point on, I'm fine with.
To answer your question, yes, I think that's a good idea. I think it's a good idea to set it at the 25.103 of last year.
Yes.
So we need a little wiggle room there in precisely those.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. That's actually higher than what I have it at.
Yeah,
And then you
just a little bit.
wean it down during the whatever. Yeah, that isn't a problem.
All right, that completes the agenda. Do we have any reports?
I had
Data or software?
Yes, please.
So I called every single one of them on those data pools that we talked about last time, about G-Works charging. Edmund says that they will take care of it, they've already dealt with it before, and G-Works doesn't mess with them when they're doing it. Pride does not do it themselves, they told us we pretty much have to find a way to do it ourselves if we wanna get past it. And then Casella said that they're the same way as Edmunds, that they can do it as well, that we don't have to worry about G-Works.
Okay,
So,
that's good. That's a significant
Yes.
cost savings.
yes.
And are we just, what are we waiting for now? For
Well,
making it final?
I guess we just have to know where the money's coming from, and things are rather tight, I believe. But I would like to just sit on it for a meeting or two, go through the budget process, see where we're at, potentially do a rate increase, because this would get charged to water, sewer, electric in general. So it would be spread out, but it's like, what numbers were we talking about?
28 or 32?
Yeah, there was, well, that's year, for the startups, I think Edmunds was 51.
But did not cover part of the fee for that year too, this year?
Yes, that covers the yearly fee as well.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, these numbers, we're just getting battered on some of this stuff, and
Could I suggest that the most helpful number for us would be, what is the difference between what we would be paying to keep what we have for the
Yeah.
year
Mhm.
and what our total outlay for this year would be for the different options? And if, I think what we really want to know, what's your priority, what are your, in priority, or what, this is my first, second, third choice? That'll make it easier.
okay. And I had a meeting set up with the engineering firm working on the convenience store. We haven't been able to meet yet, but I'll give you more when I know about it.
Can I say one more thing? A lot of these companies, once you sign the papers with them, like say, yes, we're gonna sign on with you, it's anywhere from 12 to 15 months before you go live.
Oh my.
So a lot of them are pestering me about it, but it's like I've been putting them off, but I was just gonna tell you it is that long.
Which means we continue to pay the other company as we're.
We've already paid the other company for this year
for this
anyway,
year, though.
Right.
so it's,
Potentially we'd have to go into another.
and they recently doubled it on us, so anyway.
They did tell me they're only going up about 7% this year, G-Works.
So we'll see. Don't forget, we have papers for him to sign.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for those reports. I suppose I would entertain a motion to adjourn.